Barely Research Facts is a fact-based podcast brought to you by ArtNowThus, an experiential arts agency based out of Mumbai. Each week, we pick a word at random, dive into it, and see what it brings to us. We are your hosts. My name is Ragini, and this is Shar. Let's go.
Hi, you guys. Welcome to another episode of Barely Research Facts. And this episode, the word is whisper. Sorry for blowing out the audio earphone listeners. But the word for the episode is whisper. We had quite a tough time with this one.
Yes.
And we'll tell you why in a little bit. Ragini, do you
I
want to
will
start?
with, I know that Shah's going to be talking about the second reason why we had a really tough time with this episode. We are going to be bestowing upon you as well, dear audience. But one of the other things that I found out while researching whisper is that apparently the term whisper is really popular in names of books, movies, apps, everything. Like if it's just like you type whisper something and the first thing that shows up is download this book or buy this on Amazon. And I'm just like, wow. So it's really popular with names.
Well, not people names though.
Yeah. I don't know. I didn't come across that
Thankfully.
yet.
Thankfully.
Like everything is a whisper. Whisper of the past, a whisper of the future, a whisper in like, just like all present.
I did find also that I managed to misappropriate names and things that I remember. So I Googled very confidently whispering willows. And no, that's not a thing. That's not a thing. And I was like, oh God, why isn't that a thing? And then I was like, okay, I know this one. The end of the world comes not with a bang, but with a whisper. But no, it's whimper. So that one is in the bin as well. So yeah.
Yeah, this happened to me as well because I was so confident that I knew of something called whispering bamboos. And I went down this whole rabbit hole trying to figure it out till I realized it's a restaurant that I used to go to. And So apparently, the Universal Record Database, which is a website that would be to the Guinness World Records, what Wikipedia is probably to Encyclopedia Britannica. One of the things that the website does in order to kind of also give people a chance at recognition and also kind of a bit of a marketing gimmick is that it throws this huge party in which records are set before a live audience, which is also, recorded on camera and broadcast.
Okay.
So it's called the World Record Appreciation Society, a monthly event at which records you didn't even know of before. For example, the most bananas fit in a pair of pants at once.
Who came up with that is my question.
I guess you can just come up with whatever and, if it's interesting enough, they'll invite you to one of their jams.
Okay.
So one of the records that was broken or was created at these events was by a gentleman called Jake Bronstein, who set a record on July 14, 2009 in New York City for the longest whisper chain ever. Now, this is really, whatever, it's all great and all, super good job. But it's about what happens at the end of it that's kind of really the awe moment of this, okay? Because he got 59 people at a New York bar to stand between him and his girlfriend. And he sent a whisper chain across where he asked, and at the end of the whisper chain, he basically asked people to whisper across to her and ask her to marry him. And so at the end, the 59th person whispered it to her and he was a total stranger and she was just shocked because obviously she was like, why is a random fan in a bar asking me to marry him? But okay, yeah, okay, cool. And then she found him on one knee. So not only did he break a record for the longest whisper chain, he got a marriage proposal in and got the whole thing recorded and broadcast. So really, quite a multitask.
Wow, that's so cute.
Yeah, he managed to check many milestones.
Make it self-serving, but yeah. And also, since it was broadcast, he got free video of the event.
That's what I'm saying. He just got everything done. And in the process also just became probably one of the most romantic men alive. So lots of things have happened as a result of this one. But that is the story of the longest whisper chain, which then led me down the road to kind of figure out, because the thing that comes to mind immediately with this is Chinese whispers.
Yeah.
It's a game that we've all played. And so I started Googling Chinese whispers to see, the origin. And it turns out that actually Chinese whispers is slightly racist, the term.
No. Actually, yeah, well.
Yeah. So Chinese whispers is the popular name for the game in the UK. It used to previously be called Russian scandal or Russian gossip. And then it just changed suddenly to Chinese whispers and no one really knows why. And this was sometime around the mid-20th century. And one of the reasons why it's likely that it's not a racial slur really, but I think it's because English people found Chinese people difficult to understand. And so They started calling us Chinese whispers. So it's actually slightly racist.
Yeah, it creates an otherness.
Yeah.
It's a very childhood bully kind of way of doing things, isn't it? Like, I can't understand you, so I'm just going to name this game that after you. Like,
Well done.
Yeah.
You just explained racism. But then I also realized that since we are now turning into an educational podcast for the next 1 minute, there are a couple of really popular phrases that apparently are also racist in their origin, but I suppose it's okay to keep using them right now. Apparently, long time no see is racist because it derived from Chinese picked in English.
Oh, like broken English?
Yeah. So, like it's supposed to be like a mocking way of an English-speaking person depicting how a Chinese-speaking person would talk because they can't speak proper, full sentence, correct English apparently as per the rules. So long time no see is one, and no can do is also apparently imitation of Chinese spoken English.
Oh.
Yeah, so these are two other phrases with racist origins that nobody knew about that I've discovered.
I don't remember the last time I used those two phrases, but I think that's what I'll be thinking about if I ever do.
No, I'll just be like, I have not seen you for a long time. I cannot do it.
From whispering to people who are alive to speaking to people who are dead, I was interested in this particular contraption called the spirit trumpet. Now, while that name is super funny to me, just in and of itself, the reason for its invention is also quite interesting. So I think we've discussed this in one of our previous episodes about Victorian seances and about how there was this resurgence of seances and talking to the dead and palmistry. I think it might have been in the episode Palm.
Yeah.
Palmistry and things that were, of that nature. They became really interesting to people who were basically just rich and had lots of time. So one of the biggest issues apparently with speaking to the dead in the Victorian era, beyond the whole they're dead, is that the ghosts would often talk in whispers or wouldn't be loud enough to be heard.
They were
and
shy.
This is obviously they're doing. Yeah. And they're doing it through a conduit, which is a person. So a person is, quote unquote, being possessed. And then while they're speaking really in a low volume. So the popular solution to this problem faced by mediums was to create a spirit trumpet. And it was nothing but literally if you took a piece of paper and triangularly folded it up, like that's basically what it was.
And then you just talk into
like
it.
A conical.
So basically the conduit is just talking into it and the voice is getting amplified.
Yeah, they just place it next to the person's mouth. And then, the ghost would be like, oh, Sharon, you left Jeff too early. And I don't know, whatever they would say. Now, this happened around the late 19th century. And it was popularized by a spiritualist medium called Jonathan Coons. I'm not going to go so far as to call him an inventor because no. But he did build a fantastical spirit room in his house in Ohio where guests could witness free public seances conducted not only by him but also his family.
Wow. What a fun bunch.
Yeah, I know. Oh God, can you imagine like the Addams family? But yeah, so most spirits were too soft-spoken to really project in a spirit room. And so that's why they'd use the trumpet. The trumpets themselves were usually homemade, either out of metal or cardboard for the lazy. And they were quite narrow. And as time progressed and as popularity increased, they became fancier. So some of them were steel and that they could be extendable and, things like that. Basically just more money-making schemes. And there's, in fact, a person who was the best known manufacturer of spirit trumpets who made commercialized versions from his tin shop in Anderson, Indiana. And his name was Everett Atwood Eckel. So yeah.
Booming business, huh?
Yeah, booming.
How to get a ghost to talk louder.
Yeah. And there'd be a certain formula to how these seances were conducted. First, everyone would sit down in a circle, they'd pray, maybe sing a hymn or something. And this is all done in absolute darkness, which is extremely weird in itself. Then the summoned spirit would rap on the floor. And by that, I do not mean he like Eminem'd it, but more like just knocked on the floor to announce its presence. And this could be like really aggressive knocking or slight knocking. If it's a shy ghost, then they'd just sort of like, I don't know, just like tap. And soon after, the table would levitate and on occasion spin around or turn sideways. And once all of this had happened, the medium would trot out the spirit trumpet and then it would be placed near the conduit. And then once that was done, the trumpet would come crashing down by itself. So, a great show.
Yeah.
Minus the
Yeah, I'm
dinner.
just wondering, like, if the ghost could do all of that, he could just talk a little bit louder as well, right?
I know. Why go through all
Yeah.
this trouble, spirit? Jeez. So that's the story of how Victorian mediums gave shy ghosts a megaphone. So, Ragini, do you know what researching this topic brought out?
No.
My alter ego. And I call her ASMRShar.
Oh, okay. Oh my God.
Because the big elephant in the room with the word whisper is obviously everybody's heard of ASMR. There's two types of people. You either hate it or you love
Yeah,
it.
both those people are on this podcast right now.
Don't be ASMR shaming me. ASMR Shar is here with us now. Okay. Like any good seance, she's here and she wants to tell you that if you want to listen to a Victorian ghost comforting you as you are the new owner of a haunted mansion, you must go and listen to this video by Peace and Serenity ASMR. And this is the purpose of ASMR Shar, to annoy you with
ASMR recommendations across this podcast.
Yes. And she will pop up again. I can't predict it, but I suspect after the end of every segment. She has now left. I've put the trumpet down. Going from whispering to spirits to whispering to animals. Now, I didn't know this. It was completely new to me. In Hinduism, obviously everybody knows about Lord Shiva, and he has an animal that is often associated with him who is worshipped as a separate entity as well, called Nandi.
The cow.
And the bull.
Oh, the bull. Oh, sorry.
So Nandi the bull was a great devotee of Lord Shiva and always would be seen with him, as is depicted in many paintings and sculptures and things like that. The bull lived with Lord Shiva at Mount Kailash, and Shiva was also very fond of him and trusted him completely. Now, there's a practice. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but there's a practice where if you go to a Shiv temple, you whisper into Nandi the bull's ear, because there will be a sculpture or a statue usually of Nandi. So devotees whisper in Nandi's ear.
Oh.
Is this familiar to you?
No.
So this apparently is a thing. And there's a very interesting story behind the custom as well. So goddess Parvati, who's Lord Shiva's consort, she lost her memory. And Lord Shiva was very disturbed by this. He started meditating along with the goddess Parvati. And Nandi the bull decided also that he would be part of this meditation. So he sat by them and started praying. Now, during this meditation, Jalandhar, who was an enemy of Lord Shiva, abducted goddess Parvati. And Lord Shiva was so deep in his meditation that he didn't realize that this had happened. Now, everyone was trying to alert him to the fact that this had happened. The gods were trying and they were unsuccessful. They designated Lord Ganesha to pass this information on, as though he didn't have enough problems. Yeah. So Ganesha tried as well, but that didn't work either. Then a very good idea struck Ganesha. He saw Nandi the bull, who was meditating near Lord Shiva and was, it connected to him on a higher level. And he whispered all that he wanted to in the ears of Nandi the bull. And Nandi then communicated all that he had heard to Lord Shiva. And that's how Lord Shiva came out of his deep meditation. And so from that time, to mimic this, story that happened, you go and whisper everything that you want Lord Shiva to know into Nandi's ear and hope that, the message will get passed on to him and he'll fulfill all your wishes. What a sweet story.
Yeah, it really is. I did not know this at all.
And neither did I.
Quite the trailblazer, huh? Ganesha.
Yeah, he's cute. He's my favorite.
Animal whisperers in, the godly realm to animal whisperers in the mortal realm. So the first thing I wanted to know with this was, is it real? Can people actually legitimate animal whisperers? And while it does seem to be that there are techniques in which people are able to sort of understand, animal behaviors, and a lot of, there are some people who are just intuitively able to tune into what an animal is feeling or thinking, and therefore are able to respond to that animal in a manner that they are able to kind of calmly respond to as well. So yes, long answer short is that animal whisperers potentially, while there, there are different techniques to kind of understand animal behaviors, animal whisperers are just people who seem to intuitively have a hang of how to do this and are just able to tune into the animal better than people like you and me, say, as much as we may like animals.
Oh, that's cute. I like that.
I really wish I was one too, because, honestly, some of the videos, and I'm going to actually start with this guy called Kevin Richardson, who is a lion whisperer in South Africa, and he's really famous. And, in a lot of ways, his career is quite there's a lot been said about him, that he's been a subject for multiple documentaries, movies, etc., etc. And so in that way, he's quite, his trajectory is something that we'd all sort of be sort of familiar with. But what I really enjoy about this segment is his Instagram feed is just possibly the most adorable thing. There's videos of him with a lion, nuzzling him, licking him, just hanging out. His Instagram feed is my feed with my cat, but a bigger cat. It's just amazing. I absolutely recommend you go check it out. That was what made me, throughout my research, go I really want to do this. I really want to do this. But then I also came across a couple of animal whisperers who were quite interesting, and I'm going to talk about a few of them here. One of them is Andre Hartman, who is a shark whisperer, again in South Africa. The only person who's figured out how to calm down the great white shark. So he had his first encounter with them in 1977 when he was spearfishing in the open waters around Cape Town. Attracted by vibrations caused by the distressed fish, the sharks would often circle around the area, and one day they decided to confront him. Luckily, the great white did not like the spear gun that was used to fend him off, and he decided to swim away. And at this point in time, Mr. Hartman decided that he was obviously quite shaken with the experience, and he grew to be slightly petrified of these sharks and decided to steer clear as much as possible. However, the region is sort of a bit of a mecca for great whites, so they're always there. And because there was no avoiding them, his fear slowly began to subside. And in 1996, he set up with a friend a charter company that would take tourists on cage diving trips to see the great white sharks.
Oh, okay. So this is my actual nightmare. There's a movie. I think about it. Oh, God.
But what ended up happening during his tenure with this company is that he realized that it's when he discovered the secret whisper that has now made him world famous. Now, the great whites are generally, they're curious. They want to know what's going on. And so when this thing would be underwater, they would sort of kind of try and take a bite of the boat's motor every now and then just to see what this thing was. And because he, there was obviously concern that they would actually harm it and these guys would be underwater forever, he tried to push one away by touching the tip of its snout. And what happened suddenly was that this big fish just lunged up, fell backwards, and was in this little happy trance zone for a few seconds. Yeah.
What?
And so now what he'd accidentally done is he touched the ampullae of Lorenzini, which is the electronic receptors found in the snouts of fish like sharks and rays, etc. And they're so sensitive that just a simple touch will create a rush of information and puts the fish into a temporary sensor overload. And so the shark is so overwhelmed and he's so happy that he goes into this little trance and he's just enjoying the experience. So basically it's a tiny shark high that happened.
Tiny shark high. Never did I think we'd say these words on this
in life.
podcast.
And after which he has begun to swim cageless with sharks around him. He's considered to be one of the world's greatest experts on the great whites and the only known person who has figured out how to put them in this happy, uncaring mode, even if it's just for a few seconds.
Wow.
And one of the things that he does say is that, of course, the great white sharks are amongst the most feared of the species. There are over 100 plus shark attacks that occur annually worldwide, and almost a third of these could be attributed to the great whites. However, most of them are not fatal. And what he says is that it's not because humans are able to get away, but it's because the shark is just curious. So what they're trying to do is just take a sample bite of the humans with no intention of devouring them, just to see what this is. So it's a little bit of a appetizer platter, and that's why they tend to attack humans less with the intention of killing and more with the intention of interesting, let me just have a small taste.
Are you tasty? Are you tasty?
But that's the story. And of course, in time, he's grown to kind of, he's a big part of the shark conservation movement, and he's pretty much made sharks his whole life. But I thought it was an amazing story of how he came about doing this.
Oh, he's basically like a shark drug dealer.
Yeah. You get a boop and you get a boop.
Making
and
them happy.
Yeah. And coming a little closer home to other people who seem to enjoy the company of incredibly dangerous animals and reptiles. Apparently, there are two gentlemen in India who are renowned crocodile whisperers.
What?
Yeah. And so one of them is in the Sindhudurg district in Maharashtra. There is a river that flows that's called the Tirakol River. And the waters are usually quiet and it's fairly filled with crocodiles. Now, Ramachandar Charatkar, who is a 38-year-old poultry trader, lives on the banks of this river, which flows from Maharashtra right into Goa. And one day he spotted two baby crocodiles close to the river. He then grew to nurture these reptiles and took care of them. Yeah, and increase their
naturally.
numbers by giving them a diet, and sort of he kept them healthily fed on a chicken diet. He does, however, keep a distance from them. The closest he's come is about 6 feet, and so he basically goes and he throws them a chicken, and he does a whistle for them. And the minute he does his whistle, the crocodiles come because they know it's food time, and they all line up and they get their food, and they basically go away after that. And it's become a routine. He does this about twice a week with them. And now apparently with crocodiles, they're highly trainable. So it's likely that it's easy for them to have started associating this whistle to food times, the fact that they will get food. There are at least 25 crocodiles that roam around the river currently. They are so well trained that they only wait for their food. Buffaloes will wade across the water. Villagers will go fishing and sand mining, and everyone returns unharmed because the crocodiles just don't do anything to them.
I realized I'd just gone really quiet, but it's because I have had the most weird expression on my face from this story. What? Who found out that crocodiles are highly trainable?
Why does anyone know this? Who is this brave soul who discovered this?
So many questions. That's interesting, is all I can say.
And the second story is about, so he's actually called Maharashtra's very own crocodile Pied Piper. And very soon, the Deputy Commissioner of Forests in Sindhudurg is setting up a place to be a crocodile viewing point, or a Magar Darshan. And of course, his rapport with these local creatures is famed and is increasing in fame as each day passes. There is, however, another man who is the crocodile man of Karnataka, Shivram Patil, whose bestie is a 14-foot-long crocodile called Dandelapa. And they are best friends, yeah.
Aww. Dundee for short? Is he Crocodile Dundee for short?
I didn't understand that at all.
Crocodile Dundee, it's a really famous movie.
Oh, I didn't know this. So Crocodile Dundee, apparently, him and his wife are hanging out in the Kali River, which is where Mr. Patil lives near. And their 2 babies were abandoned from them. And so he found the 2 babies and he took them back to their mother. And since then, an unbreakable bond of trust was formed between Patil and his crocodiles.
Bless him.
And now he has built the crocodile clan, which has over 250 reptiles, and his best friend amongst them is Sandilapa. So these are some pretty sweet stories about people about animal whisperers who have skills that are just baffling to me, but good for them. I have to say, it's not always all great, though. There is a famed snake whisperer in Malaysia who apparently recently died after getting bitten by one of his cobras.
No.
So even if you are an animal whisperer, I think it's best to exercise caution. That's my takeaway from this.
Okay, Ragini has spoken.
Yeah, that's my segment on animal whisperers.
So, guess who's back?
Is ASMRShar back?
It's ASMRShar, you guys, trumpet in hand. So, if you're interested in hedgehog, armadillo, and dragon ASMR, you should check out Animal Wonders Montana's video, because I recommend it. It's ASMRShar approved. Also, ASMR with my animals. Just listen to this lovely lady called Mermaid Whispers talk to her animals. Enjoy.
Okay.
She's left. So, on the topic of whisper, because that's what the episode's about, have you heard about whispering in rap? Was this something that you were cognizant of before I said this phrase?
No, I don't think, no.
I wasn't either. I'm glad we're both in the same boat. Because apparently, thanks to this really interesting article in XXL Mag, a thing that has happened in rap for about 25 years now. So it's not something you associate with rap either, whispering. But apparently the first time that whispering was used during a track, and it's the oldest and the most well-documented example, is Ice Ice Baby. Everybody knows that song, right?
That is whispering in rap.
Well, only over the chorus. The verses are all rapped at full volume.
Yeah, that's why you don't think of it as that. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah, they're great verses. And then during the hook, he just goes, Ice, Ice, Baby, over an iconic piano-driven beat. So that's the first time that it was used. And it's been used, a bunch of times since then. But they've compiled this list. We'll put the link in the blog to the episode. But go check it out. If you can recommend any songs or rap songs that have used this technique, then let us know, because I was completely clueless.
Likewise, I would imagine ASMRShar would have a recommendation here. But
So, I'm back. There's a rapping songs for 30 minutes by Carl ASMR, which is super cool. I really enjoyed it.
So, in 1969, when the Apollo 10 astronauts orbited the moon as a test run for the Apollo 11 moon landing 2 months later, and while they flew to the far side of the moon, they basically went out of radio contact with Earth for roughly an hour, at which point they were the loneliest people in the universe, according to media at the time.
Oh, God.
But yeah, I know, it really
Gives me
does.
chills.
But also, to add to the experience, because it's not scary enough already, while they were on the far side of the moon, they began to hear some strange sounds that they could not immediately identify. So fun.
I'm shocked into silence.
The entire conversation was recorded. The transcript was initially classified by NASA but was only released in 2008. But the actual recording of the noise that they heard was kept under wraps until very, very recently. And yeah, why don't you just take a listen to what it sounded like?
That music even sounds outer spacey, doesn't it? Do you hear that? That whistling sound?
Well, that's super
it is
eerie.
creepy, right? And worse, like if you're basically in space, you have no clue what the sound is, and it's just there. Now, apparently, space makes sounds all the time, according to the article that I've found this on. But it's usually charged particles interacting with the planet's magnetic field. In 1979, another NASA Voyager spacecraft picked up a noise near Jupiter that sounds a lot like what the Apollo 10 astronauts heard while they were orbiting the moon. And another spacecraft recorded sounds around Saturn as well in 2002. The thing is, the moon now neither has a magnetic field nor an atmosphere, meaning the radio transmissions picked up by the Apollo astronauts couldn't possibly have come from the moon in the first place. So, therefore, logical conclusion, aliens, obviously. What else? Yeah? Yeah,
it's aliens.
Always, yeah.
We've discussed this.
My goal in this podcast is one day to prove that aliens are there. But unfortunately, this is not my moment, because 2 months after the Apollo 10 astronauts heard the sounds, Michael Collins, who was the single Apollo 11 astronaut who stayed in the moon's orbit while Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin touched down on the surface, so great job for him. He does write that the NASA radio technicians had told him beforehand that the sounds were a result of interference between the radio in the lunar module and one in the command module. So it was just technical difficulties.
Oh. Damn it.
But I'm sure it was harrowing at the time.
Yeah. Can you imagine being furthest away from the Earth in an isolated place?
Yeah, and then hearing these whispers from like outer space.
All the makings of a horror movie, that's what it is. I would have been like, turn this around, let's go back. So, ASMRShar also talks about herself in the third person, thinks that you should listen to Exploring Uranus, ASMR Whisper, Space Science Book by Let's Find Out ASMR.
Yeah, why not?
Really, why not? Just why not? When you can listen to it at home and not in a Apollo space shuttle far away from Earth.
And I'm assuming the name has nothing to do with why this recommendation has come about. There isn't.
Not at all. Uranus is super interesting. So, and now she's left. Oh God, she just like pops up at the weirdest moments. So, from Whispers in Space to Whispers on Terra Firma, have you heard of this place called the Year of Dionysius?
No.
Okay. So, in Syracuse, in Italy, there's this archaeological park called the Parco Archeologico della Neapolis. And it has really interesting structures within it. Constructed in the 5th century BC and rebuilt in the 3rd century, the 16,000 capacity amphitheater staged the last tragedies of Aeschylus, first performed here in his presence.
Oh, wow.
I know, it's a bit mad how far back, in time all this stuff goes. So there's also an interesting limestone quarry. It's huge. The limestone quarry is created from the limestone that was extracted to create the city.
Okay.
So it's riddled with catacombs. It's the eeriest place ever because obviously all the echoes, all the different ways in which the sound can echo, it echoes. And it's also where 7,000 survivors of the war between Syracuse and Athens in 413 BC were imprisoned.
Wow. 7,000.
Now,
wow.
Yeah, 7,000. So this large limestone cave, obviously it has, this interesting effect of echoing and things like that. But also there's a great legend attached to it. So apparently the tyrant Dionysius, not to be confused with Dionysus, who is a Greek god, he used this place as a prison, as mentioned. And the wedge shape of the cavern caused people's conversations to be focused and amplified at the roof of the cave, which is 22 meters above the floor. So apparently it created such a funnel, almost one would say like a megaphone used in the 19th century for ghosts. Similarly, it amplified the sound through a small hidden opening at the top of the cave, even when the prisoners spoke in whispers. And in 1829, Konrad Moltbrunn, a visitor to the cave, said of it, the tearing of a piece of paper makes a noise not unlike that occasioned by knocking a heavy stick against a stone. So that tells you how much it was amplified. But but unfortunately, it's no longer possible to hear the effect exactly how they did in previous years because safety, health and safety, essentially. In the past, travelers were hoisted up by rope and pulley to the opening so that they could hear the effect. But obviously, nobody's going to be hoisting Jeff up there. And then Jeff's like, oh, I'm just going to take my harness off because I want to hear better. And no. So they've stopped doing that. So modern listeners can't, do that. They're just left to enjoy the different effects of the sound and the reverberance at just ground level. So there was a group of researchers led by Gino Iannacci who made measurements and tested whether the spying myth could be true. And disappointingly, they found that any whispered conversations were unintelligible and lost in a blur of reverberation. So no, none of the 7,000 prisoners gave up any secrets by whispering to each other. It's just a legend. Oh my God, ASMRShar is back.
I haven't got rid of that.
To end the episode. In case you were craving it, there's an ASMR of, quote, you and I hiding in a cave together.
That's romantic.
By Dreamscape ASMR. Yeah, it does sound a bit, like a glass of wine late at night, alone, always alone. Because you want to hide your shame. But yeah, so enjoy. And that's our episode for today. We hoped you enjoyed it. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, like our posts, and share this, guys.
Review, subscribe, all of that. We'll see you next time. See you. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, that's it for today. The episode you just heard was edited by Mohit Chandelier. Music for the episode is by Charitha Arora. If you'd like to reach out to us about the podcast, the episode, or you just want to say hi in general, we're on Instagram as Barely Research Facts. You could also come to the website at www.ArtNowThus.in. If you like the podcast, review, subscribe, and please share it with other podcast lovers in your circle. It would mean so much to us. Until next time, bye.